today I have one of my OG coaches and a good friend of mine, Vanessa, Long on the podcast. We've known each other for 12 years, right? 12 years, Vanessa?
12 years.
12 years.
Years is open. And it's the open season.
And it's the open season. Perfect timing. So your first open was 2012.
My first official open that I signed up for was 2012.
And you went to regionals that year.
Yeah.
And you competed for one day.
Yes, because I got married the next day because I didn't know what really CrossFit was. And everyone's like, oh, you're gonna make regionals. I said, what's that? And then, but my wedding was already set.
That's so funny. It's so funny that your first year of doing CrossFit, which, I mean, how long did you do CrossFit before you actually went to regionals?
Like officially, the first time I stepped into a CrossFit gym was the end of 2011. But I had heard about CrossFit in like 2010 and didn't really know what it was. I remember I Googled it. And because my husband now, at the time my fiance, was when he was in law school, he had a friend that was in the Army and was like, oh, CrossFit, and thought it was just a bunch of like tire flips, but said like, oh, I think your girlfriend would like it or your fiance would like this. I was like, okay.
That's awesome.
And I Googled it and I was like, well, and I saw it was like all the benchmarks. And I remember it was Cindy. It was the 5, 10, 15 push-ups, pull-ups, and air squats. And I remember it was like, I can do those movements. Let me do this. And I did it at like my school gym. And that was the first CrossFit workout I did. I think that was like in the end of 2010, I think.
Okay.
And then I just kind of dipped in it. And then
2010 or 2011?
It was like during 2010. And then like when I was friends with Josh, when we started working out together, it was the open in 2011 and
right.
We were at 24. And he was like, oh,
okay.
this is CrossFit. I said, I've heard of that. And I had no idea what CrossFit was. It was just a term. And I was like, what's this? And he was like, oh, it's the open. And then it's like an online qualifier. And I remember I did, it was one with snatches. It was like 15 snatches and 30 double unders. It was like 10-minute AMRAP.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
And that one was in 2011. I was like, let me try this. And I couldn't do double unders. So I think I did it with singles, but I knew how to snatch because of when I was cheering in college. And I was like, I think I know how to do those. And I remember being like, this is so hard.
That was a hard workout.
But that was like, yeah. So like I had like dipped in it every now and then because I was still cheering at the time. And yeah, but like officially CrossFit, I think I started doing that more towards the end of 2011.
That's crazy. Dang, that's a fast turnaround. That's awesome. Let's kind of backtrack a little bit. Kind of give us like your background for everyone who doesn't know who you are. I know who you are because you're one of my, if you don't know this, Vanessa was probably like the second or third coach we ever had at Red Wolf. And then, we still keep in touch. She worked out today at Red Wolf and that was awesome. So kind of give us your 1 minute Vanessa story. And tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Long. I've been in the fitness world since 2010. That's when I got my personal training certificate. When I was in school, I got my degree in kinesiology with an option in exercise science from Cal State Long Beach. I graduated in 2011. I became a personal trainer at the 24, and that's how I met my best friend. And that's when I kind of like dipped into CrossFit a bit. And then we knew people that were at the gym that you started at. And instead of going to a gym that was like 10 minutes from our house, we drove from the Inland Empire to Orange County.
I totally forgot you guys did that. From Chino Hills all the way out to Costa Mesa.
Yep, we sure did. We did that 3 days a week, at least, sometimes more. Because,
that's quite a drive.
That was all we did back then. We worked out, partied, and
we did party.
Yeah, we just did that. And yeah, so I started CrossFit then, and then I got certified in 2012 with my L1. And then we started doing group classes. And then at the same time, because we were still driving out here, you needed coaches. I was like, well, I wanted to be immersed in all the, I wanted to be a better coach. Like I knew like the best way to learn how to coach was to be around the people that I looked up to. And so after I got certified, I wanted to get more experience. And so I was very fortunate and lucky that you trusted me enough to coach. So I would drive from Chino Hills and I would coach on Friday nights and come out here. And yeah, and I feel like that was that was like my beginning journey as a coach. And I helped open our gym back home in 2014. We had that for 4 years. And then I still coach on the side. I went back into coaching cheerleading at the high school and the college level. And I still do that now, and I coach part-time. And then somewhere in between all that, I had 4 kids. So.
Wow. That was an awesome summary though. That was very well said. You covered everything. That was awesome. Yeah. Well done.
Thanks.
Were you prepared for that?
No.
Well done. It's crazy to think that all that happened in the span of 12 years.
I know.
A lot has happened.
A lot of life has happened. I feel like it was yesterday, but also not.
I know. It's weird how time works like that. So first question number 1, let's get right into it. So looking back, how do you think being a part of Red Wolf from the start has helped shape your approach to coaching and fitness?
I had a lot of epiphanies today, actually, because I took the 12 o'clock class.
Nice.
I think the biggest thing, and I was thinking about this on my way here too, I feel like the biggest thing that I appreciated and that I learned most was that being good at CrossFit doesn't make you a good coach.
100%.
And I feel like because when I first started doing CrossFit, everyone was like, oh, but you are good at it. And I was like, but that doesn't necessarily make me a good coach. I mean, I was coaching cheer beforehand, so it's not like I was new to coaching in general, but I think it was really important for me to know that ahead of time, because I feel like that also humbled me. Because that was like, I had plenty of people be like, oh, you're so good and blah, 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 you know? But I was very thankful for you and Josh and like all my friends that were like, that you guys would grab me real quick in a good way, because that's what made me better. It's like, I didn't need more people like telling me I was just good at something without necessarily being good. Like just because you're good at the exercising thing, or you're good at your sport or your event or whatever it might be, doesn't make you a good coach. And I think that was something that we talked a lot about. And I think when we would talk about just like programming, because you did a lot of you did your own programming back in the day, and like just being part of those conversations like really helped me not just learn it as like a competitive athlete, because we were also competing at the time.
Yeah.
So like we would also do a really good job of looking at it, how we would approach it as like a competitor, but then also how would we approach it as like someone that's new to CrossFit. And I feel like that was something that I don't even think I realized at the time was important. And then during today, the EMOM, I was like, I had that epiphany. I was like, learning how to navigate those kinds of workouts can be for anybody. So whether you're competitive, like I feel like I went through this, like we're going to go off a tangent. I went through like a whole array of like emotions in those 21 minutes. Because the first 4 sets, I was totally fine. I was like, okay, this is not so bad. And then I remember thinking in my head, I got in my head, I was like, I'm so tired. I was like, I'm not going to make it. And then I started tripping up on my double unders. And then like, if you trip up like a minute, like you can either do 50 really quick or it's going to eat up the entire minute. And I remember like almost panicking. And then I remember it triggered another memory. I was like, when we used to train, it would be like, hey, we have to like calm down. Learning how to calm yourself down in the middle of a workout is a skill in itself.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of people think like just because you're competitive, like that's the only time it matters. It's like, no, it matters like whether you do or you don't. And it's like, it helps you kind of figure out how you want to approach a workout. How do you like, what's the stimulus that we're after? Are we scaling too high? Are we scaling too low? Are we making it too easy? Are we making it too hard? And it's kind of like it's never going to be perfect. Kind of like today, like even today, like I got in my head a little bit. I was like, I didn't think I was going to make it. And then I'm still a little slightly bitter. Like I missed one thing I didn't finish. Out of the 21 minutes, only 1 minute I didn't finish all the stuff. But it was because I had second guessed myself for like a split second. Because then I was like, I'm okay. But then like you find this balance of like knowing when to push and when not to push, and when you like, and at the end of the day, it's exercise. Like I got to work out no matter what.
100%.
But I think like learning how to have these conversations with people, again, whether they're competitive or they're not, at the end of the day, everyone has goals. And the only way that you're going to get to your goals is how do you push yourself? And I think that's what makes CrossFit so great, is that it takes every single person out of their comfort zone. And so I feel like that whole bit, like just like the mindset pieces and learning how to coach every type of person, we did that from the very beginning. And I was very fortunate to have that with everyone that we, our little OG group. And I feel like that's what's made me a better coach over the course of 12 years, because that's something that I've never forgotten.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That was extremely well said. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's kind of the philosophy that I kind of started the gym with in the first place, was that we don't coach group classes, we coach individuals in a group setting. And that has really stuck with, that's how I coach my coaches, and that's how we run things at my gym personally. It's just, in my opinion, that's the best way to do it. Kind of backtracking to something you said earlier. So you said that that calming yourself down in the middle of a workout is a skill in and of itself. If you could go back an hour ago and coach yourself again, what would you tell yourself?
I would have told myself to take it minute by minute, because I started thinking about the last 2 sets when I was in like the 5th.
You're already thinking ahead.
I was already thinking too far ahead, and I psyched myself out, and it was like I started panicking. I was, and again, like, I'm not competing. I wanted to move, but then it was like I had this moment of like giving up because it was good enough, but then like my old, competitive side of me was like, well, no, you can. And I feel like that little bit that I second guessed myself for, like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain sometimes. It's like I can feel it in that moment where you doubt yourself, but then you realize that you can. And I feel like it's in those middle parts that's where a lot of people find a lot of confidence in themselves in CrossFit.
Right.
And I think I felt that, like, I was almost like comfortable being like, it's the end. But then I was like, wait, no, but it's already the end. I can do it for one more.
Yeah.
But then it was, then I was like, it's okay.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I did the same workout earlier. I did it with the 9:15 class, and I kind of had that voice in my head too. It's funny you bring that up, because it was 5 muscle ups, but it said 3 to 5 muscle ups. My first round I did 5, and the first 5 were really hard, and I was like, I think I'll drop down to 3. But then I decided, I'm like, I'm just going to do 5 for as long as I can, and once I fail, then I'll go down to 3. And then I ended up finishing the workout with all 5. So I mean, yeah, the stories we tell ourselves in the middle of a workout actually really do matter.
But then it's like, but I think that's also important, because that's what sets you up for the next one. And it's like, I think I'm much, again, 12 years later, I think I'm much better now. Like, I feel like before I used to hold on to it and like beat myself up and like get all bitter about it. Now it's like, okay, like, I'm still a little salty about it, but I know, like, every time that I practice that mindset of, I think I can, like, now I know, like, okay, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I don't finish, but I won't know unless I actually go for it.
Right.
And I think those little things are what set you up. Like, that's why the more consistent you are when you show up to class, like, the more opportunities that is for you to practice that mindset. And will it always be right? Probably not. Like, you might do it and be like, oh, that's great. Or sometimes you might be like, I think I can. And then you're like, oh, quickly, cannot. I did not plan that out very well. And I think a part of it is just being okay with knowing, like, where you learned.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I love how you said that about not beating yourself up. And yeah, I mean, it's really easy to get in your own head, but at the end of the day, it's just fitness. We're just having fun. We're just working out. It's for the long term. And, if you do mess up, that's okay. Like, just move on, and it's just fitness, and you're going to learn from it. And, so it's all good.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you showed up and you did something.
Yeah, exactly. Especially now that we're, not like in our 20s anymore, it doesn't matter as much.
Nope.
All right. Can you share a memorable moment or a turning point for you in the early stages of Red Wolf that kind of has stayed with you throughout your coaching journey?
Yes. I think the most memorable part of coaching at Red Wolf was where I gained my confidence as a female coach. Back in 2012, even like when I first started like lifting, when I learned how to lift when I was in college, it was very uncommon to see a woman in like the weight area.
Yeah.
Like, it was like the unknown territory for women. Like, women stayed on the side of the ellipticals and the treadmills.
Exactly.
Maybe like the mat. And so I love that though. Like, when I first started working out, it was because it was finally like, instead of what my body looked like, it was about what my body can do. And I think that's why I gravitated toward CrossFit so much, was because it was about doing things, and it was about my performance versus what I look like. And then it turned out that, it was a byproduct instead.
Yeah.
And so the biggest part was, again, like, as a female, like in CrossFit, like, it's really hard to have that confidence if you are constantly kind of like, you have this thing in the back of your mind, like, where you don't know if you're being judged, right? Like, I'm 5 feet tall. I'm a short little Filipino lady. And like, when I used to work at 24, like, I used to have like these big guys, and like, they just, not everybody, but it happened enough where it was just like, they kind of would like second guess me, or they wouldn't think like I was credible enough. And it's like, I swear I know what I'm doing, and it's just, it was a really hard time for me to figure out like my confidence and my value in the CrossFit space as a coach, especially for 12 years ago. Like I think it's much better now, but you know, 12 years ago it was really hard, and
It was a lot different back then.
And it was like it was intimidating. And you know, I was very fortunate that I had a lot of males in the industry that looked out for me, that had my back, that helped me build my confidence. And I remember, this is the memory, I remember you and Josh, and I think there were some other people. I was coaching the class at Red Wolf, and I remember being like, oh crap, you guys are taking the class. Like, you guys decided you were going to take the class. We had already worked out, but you guys decided you wanted to work out and take the class. And I remember being like nervous. I remember shaking, like, oh, you guys are in the class. Like, how do you go and coach the people that coach you? Like, you guys were like mentors to me.
Right.
And so I remember just being very, very intimidated and like not sure like how to do it. And I just remember like in that moment, I remembered like they wouldn't tell me that I could do this if they didn't actually believe in me. And I remember like taking a deep breath and just like going with it and having fun with it. And like, I still learn, like, I remember like asking, I think I remember asking Josh, like, hey, like, how did you feel about like how you went about that class? And I remember like just kind of using it as like a learning day and knowing like where I could have grown and like where I did well. But it wasn't even so much of that. It was the confidence that it helped me build as a female in the space that was very male dominated, and knowing that I had people in my corner that had my back. So if there were people, you know, that would, you know, second guess me or that would be disrespectful, that I knew that I had you guys in my corner. And just having that, I think, helped build my confidence and know the value that I bring when I coach a class.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's such a great story. And I didn't even really know that, which is funny. I remember taking your class being like, I just want to work out and have Vanessa coach me.
Yeah, but I think for sure. I think that's the beauty of it, is that I don't even like, I've known that, but I think like reading it, I was like reflecting on it. I was like, it was a big deal for me back then.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you stuck with it, and look at you now, so successful. So that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's kind of the beauty of CrossFit. I think that's one of those unwritten things that people kind of write off about CrossFit, because CrossFit does get a lot of hate. But let's be real, like before CrossFit, you're absolutely right. Like women were not in the weight room as much as the dudes are now. I mean, now you see that it's completely normal for women to strength train and to have bigger muscles, and people like that. And I think it's great because, I mean, look how female dominated CrossFit is now, even on like, you know, Instagram or in the CrossFit Games space, where the top, you know, I think some of the highest sponsored or highest paid athletes in CrossFit are all female. I think like the top 5 to 9 are all actually female. Yeah, if you take into account sponsorships and everything. Yeah, I think it's a very female dominated sport now, which is great. And it's also really cool because when you think about it, if any, like, I know I'm kind of getting into the CrossFit Games stuff, but if you just look at it, like, you know, everyone sticks around for the last heat of the women's, which is awesome. Like, you know, because any other sport, it's like, well, you know, baseball or softball, it's like everyone's going to go watch baseball, you know, the same thing with basketball. But then you see CrossFit and it's like, it's pretty much dead even. You know, like the stands are packed for the final heat for all the heats of the women, just as much as they are for the men, which is really cool.
That is, I never thought of that way.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I noticed, at least in the early days, because I remember going to the 2010 CrossFit Games, and it was pretty empty. But I do remember thinking like, it's pretty cool that that the amount of attendance per heat is pretty much the same for the men's final heat and the final women's heat, because, you know, like for heat 1 didn't get as much people regardless of who was competing, but then the final heat didn't matter who it was, everyone was watching. So I remember noticing that and being like, I think they're onto something here. So it's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. All right. How do you integrate your CrossFit training and health routines into your daily schedule, managing 4 kids? We're kind of getting to family stuff now, because I know you have a hectic schedule. You have 4 kids. And so tell us about that.
I think a lot of it comes down to knowing that like knowing that something is going to be better than nothing. So I actually have to do them today. I was going to do them after that workout, but I didn't. Something as small as like doing 50 push-ups a day. I remember I saw you posted that one Wednesday and I was like, I'm going to do that. So I stopped what I was doing and I did push-ups.
That's awesome.
And so ever since you posted that, like I randomly saw it and I was like, I'm going to just do my push-ups. So I've been doing them every day since. You know, and today was actually my first, like I went into the gym since, what's today? Wednesday, since last Thursday, maybe Wednesday, since last Wednesday, maybe, just because that's where my life has been. And I think knowing that like life is going to happen, like I have 4 kids under the age of 7, it's not always going to be perfect. And it's kind of like knowing like there's going to be some days where I bring all of my kids to the gym because that's what works. That's how I'm going to get a workout in. Or there's going to be a day where like I work out at 5 a.m. Like I'm going to make sure I get up. I ask my husband like, hey, I know it'll be kind of crazy, but I need to get this workout in because I know I'm not going to later on today. And I need to get out. You know, and so, or it might mean like I do my 50 push-ups today and that's all I did.
Yeah.
Like that's, and I think being okay with that and knowing that it doesn't have to be like perfect. And maybe I'm not going to get my 3 to 5 days a week as much as I would like. Just accepting that has helped me integrate it more into my life because now it's not like for example, I haven't worked out in a gym since last Wednesday, but I did my 50 push-ups even when I was gone working a cheer competition all weekend. Yeah. And then some of those days I ended up being able to work out in the morning and that's what I did. And then when I came home, I was like, okay, I'm going to spend time with my family. That's what I'm going to do. Like I chose not to work out because I wanted to rest too, because I was gone all weekend. And then again, parenthood. Then the next day, my other kid couldn't go to daycare because he got pink eye. And I was like, wonderful. And so then I was like, I could have, you know, worked out at home. Like I have a full home gym in my garage, but I was like, I want to be here. Like I haven't seen him. Like he's been in daycare. So I was like, I'm going to snuggle him and spend some time with him. And so, but I did my push-ups with him. And so it was just kind of like, but then same thing happened yesterday. And I was like, okay. So then I decided, but then there also comes a point of, I know like being okay with like not doing it, but then also knowing, okay, when do I need to get off my ass and do something? Yeah. And so last night I was like, I was going to read my book anyway. When the kids went to bed, I sat on my assault bike and I read and did 30 on, 30 off for an hour. I was
wow. Like, an hour?
Because I was reading. I mean, it was like 30 on, quote unquote on, like it was like moderate.
It's still an hour on the assault bike. Good
But Lord. I was reading, but I read my book. I was going to sit in my bed and read anyway. So I was like, I might as well get on my bike and do it because I sat on my butt the last 3 days.
Look at you. But I could never, I don't think I could do that. So even more respect to you.
Only because I didn't want to think about it. That was why. Because like I'm just like everybody else. I don't like programming for myself. I don't like it. I like when someone tells me what to do. Or if I'm going to do something myself, it's like I'm going to just do something that I know that I've done before that doesn't require very much thinking. Like I literally got on the bike, didn't even change, didn't put on shoes. I just hopped on the bike and I went because I knew if I sat there and tried to think about what I wanted to do, I would have talked myself out of it. And I think that's how I integrate a lot of the things that I do is that I can't give myself time to think. I can't give myself time to talk myself out of it or to be too busy to do it. Right. Because then I won't. And then, like I said, like then there are some days where it's warranted. And then I'm like, okay, it's been 3 days. I need to get off my butt and like do something. And so it's just like, it's knowing when and where to kind of push and pull for yourself and being okay with like what happens in those moments. And knowing that it's not about the week or even the month, it's about the longevity of it. So it's like, okay, what can I do for the rest of my life? Yeah. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like I tell people that all the time because people come to me with like, hey Matt, should I go on this diet? Should I get extra programming? Like they want to add more to their plate. And I always tell them like, well, if you can't sustain it for the rest of your life, there's no point in doing it just even for one day. So we need to figure out something that's sustainable. That's a great story. Kind of going back to that, what would you tell someone who also has, a hectic schedule like yours? You have 4 kids, you work, you even though you have a garage gym, you still struggle to get in your workouts just like everybody else. And what's a piece of advice that you could give people listening if they're also struggling with a hectic schedule?
Find what you are willing to do at the bare minimum. Like my advice, like those little tips, do the bare minimum, because chances are you like you said, like people think like they need to add more stuff. Like they think they need to go on the newest like trendy diet. They need to add more programming. They need to add more time in the gym. I'm like, we already don't have enough time to do all the other stuff that we have.
100%.
Right? Like, side note, like, it always reminds me, like, you know, when you were like a young trainer and it's like, well, everyone has the same 24 hours. No, we don't. I don't have the same 24 hours as like, what is that? Anyone has 20 years old? Like, get out of here.
People with kids do not have the same 24 hours.
And so it's like, and it's not, again, but it's also very careful to tread, like, it's not the excuses. And it's like, it's being realistic.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, what can I do? Like, what is the bare minimum you are willing to do? Because I think a lot of times we think, oh, social media says that I have to do this type of program to do this type of eating. It's like, okay, but if it doesn't work for you and you don't even want to do it, why would you do it?
Yeah.
You know what I
if
mean?
you can't sustain it either.
Exactly.
What's the point?
Like, or like people are like, well, I cut out carbs. Well, do you plan on eating them again? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, what's going to happen when you decide that you want to put them back in? You gain every single thing that you lost.
Yeah. You just backtrack to your old habits again.
Exactly. And so it's like, okay, it's like, so then that's what I teach an aerobics class, like at the junior college I coach at. And I tell people, like, do the bare minimum. Like, do something small. Like, so for example, those 50 push-ups, like, I've actually been using that as like a learning point for the people that I train there. I was like,
that's awesome.
I was like, I've been doing this my whole life. I was like, but I'm human too. I was like, those 50 push-ups, that's something that I can do with the drop of a hat. Like, I almost forgot them at like 10 o'clock at night. I was like, I literally just crawled out of bed and started doing them.
Yeah.
Right. And
awesome.
so it's like, but it's like finding the little things like that. So it's like, what's the bare minimum that you could do today? Whether that means, like, sometimes like I'll park the farthest lot away from the grocery store, so I just have to walk a little farther, right? Something like that. Like, I'm not the best, like, my eating habits, that's something that I'm working on. But like something as simple as like, hey, I added some frozen peas to the mac and cheese that I made for my children.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do today.
There you go. That's perfect. That's a great example.
Like the little things like that, where it's like, hey, I only have, 10 minutes. Like, I don't have very many things to do today. Like, that's where, like, I'll do my push-ups in front of the TV while we're watching Bluey, or like I'll use my kids. Like, they think it's fun when I squat with them. Like, that's why all my video, like this whole week, like if I do my push-ups with the kids, they all think that's their cue to sit on me. I'm like, well, I guess I'm doing weighted push-ups today. Right. And so it's like, you can include them, even if it's like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, you're going to sit there and watch them watch TV anyway.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, use them. Like, they are now your weight. Doing step ups, I think with like the kids, they think that's so fun, or like squatting or doing thrusters with them.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. Like, even if it's like 20 reps, 50 reps, like doing something, I think that's the big, like doing the bare minimum, because you were going to do nothing anyway. So instead of thinking we need more, it's like, okay, well, having the intention to do something toward your goal.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's more of a mindset, and it's hard because you don't know it unless you do it. And it's really easy to say, but then you realize, like, oh, it makes sense. So, but you have to be in it. So that's why I always tell people, like, find something small enough to do that you can do every day.
Yeah.
Like the 50 push-ups. Like, that's been so helpful for me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And thank you for sticking with that. It's really inspiring. A lot of people, because I repost every time you do it, and people even message me and they're like, dude, this Vanessa chick is killing it. And I'm like, you have no idea. I've known her for a while, and I'm not surprised. I think people also kind of get into this all or nothing mentality where it's like, if I don't have a killer workout, the day is lost. When I love how you talked about the minimums. And, that's one thing I learned from my coach too, is because I told him one day when I was, in my competitive days, when I was like, man, I'm not hitting PRs. I'm not like, my Fran time's not getting better. All my stats are just staying stagnant. But then he's like, Matt, well, look at your minimums. He's like, before, when you first started training with me, there were days where if we maxed out on a snatch, you could only hit 185. Now you can hit 225 on 2 hours of sleep, and you're extremely sore, and you already did 3 WODs before. That is your minimum. He's like, we focus on minimums. And I'm like, oh, I like that. And then so I like how you brought that up, because that's kind of how I operate too. Yeah. Are there any specific minimums that you already have preset other than the 50 push-ups, or is it just kind of just whatever, you just make it up on the go?
I kind of just make it up on the go, because something for me that I've learned is that, like, you have to know what works for you. Like, what works for somebody. And I think that's a hard part with like social media today. People are like, well, I want to look like this person, and so I'm going to follow their thing. I'm like, you could take the same workout and have 2 people do the exact same thing, and you will get 2 completely different results.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people are still kind of learning that, like, because again, social media, everyone knows everything. And so it's just, and people are going to flock to the things that they're the most biased about. They're going to go to the things that they're going to want. And it's like, no one, like, the only thing that is the magic pill is going to be consistency. And so I think Like people have to find out what they like. And I remember when I first started off as a trainer, I remember being like, well, burpees are good for you. I was like, this person legitimately hates burpees, but I kept making them do it. They hated them. Like I was very lucky that our rapport was good and she still trained with me. But I look back and I'm like, she didn't like those. Why the hell did I make her do them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, you also got to find the things that like, and again, that doesn't mean like, hey, you're in CrossFit, I don't have to do burpees. Different kind of thing. You know, and so it's like, if someone doesn't like yoga, I'm probably not going to tell them, hey, you have to go do yoga. You know what I mean? Like, you have to find something that they're going to want to go do even when it's hard. So for me, I use my home gym when I absolutely have to. Like last night when I was like, okay, I got to do something, get myself off my butt and like go do it. But normally I work better if I go into the gym. Like even the gym that I coach at is still 25 minutes away from me. I don't know why I don't ever work near gyms that are near my house. But I will wake up. I am more likely going to wake up at 4:30 to go to the 5 a.m. class 25 minutes away.
Right.
Because I know people are there and I know it gets me going. And I know that no matter what happens, the hour is going to go by and I'm going to get that workout in.
Yeah.
Even if I have all my kids. But if I have all of my kids and do it in my garage gym, I'm going to get distracted. Someone's going to want a snack. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go get it.
Yeah.
Versus if I have a snack, but if I have the snack, I just hand it to them and I finish doing the workout. Like it's just different, but that works for me.
Yeah.
People are always like, well, how do you bring all the kids? I'm like, because it just works. For some people it doesn't, and that's okay. But you have to find the thing that works for you that you are willing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest part, is you have to find the things that you are willing to do and then be real with yourself. You have to be okay with like, yes, it is okay if you don't if you're not going to choose to do like a 45-minute workout. You might get to your goals a little slower, but you also have to be realistic and you have to be okay with knowing that whatever you're choosing to do is going to get you where you want to be eventually over time. Because again, it's about the habit, it's about the consistency, it's about the longevity of it.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. Like the whole, I think people get so stuck on such shorter time horizons that they expect, you know, I tried this for a week, I'm not seeing results and therefore I will not do it. When really you have to like really be like, well, let's take this over the next 10 years. Focus on that first, 10 years first. Because I mean, so many times I've talked to people and then they quit so quickly because they just think that it's going to come so fast. You know, you're not buying a MacBook Pro here where it's like you get the instant gratification. Yeah. You know, it's something that takes a long time to get into. Can you share some quick, effective tips that have helped you stay fit amongst the busy life? I know we've already kind of covered some of them, but is there anything else you want to add to that?
I think find people that you want to work out with. I think that's what makes, again, CrossFit so great, is because you have a community. And if you know people are waiting for you, or like you made plans to go get someone like to go work out, you're more likely going to do it because you made plans with someone, right? Or you schedule it. Like, right, we schedule meetings throughout our day. We schedule appointments, schedule your workouts, start adding it into your day. So you know, like that was part of your plan already. And like, if you know, like, so for parents, I always tell people, I'm like, the 5 a.m. classes, no matter what gym I've ever been to, are always the most consistent.
Oh yeah, they definitely are.
Because it's usually going to be the parents or people that have families, and they know when they come home, they're not going to want to work out because they want to spend time with their families. So like there has to be a give and a take. So they choose to come early in the morning before they go to work, or maybe on their lunch break. If like the noon class sometimes is always a good one too. But like you have to schedule it for yourself and know what works for you, right? And so it's like you have to put it in where you're less likely to make excuses, right? So like, again, most people are going to spend time after work with their families. So you probably don't want to schedule your workouts at the time that's going to make it the hardest part for you to like, even just to get going.
Right.
And so scheduling it at a time that you know is more feasible for you. And then again, doing like finding ways that help keep you accountable, you know, and that's the other part of CrossFit and like even personal training and things like that. Like you're not paying, like anyone can find all these workouts online. The internet is unlimited information. So anyone can find a workout and do it. It's the accountability, and it's the, you know, it's the camaraderie, it's the rapport that you make with someone that believes in you, that knows that can help you, like, and not just maybe even from a coaching standpoint, but just from a motivation standpoint. You know, there are so many days where I'm like, I have zero desire to get out of bed right now and do this. Ooh, but my friend's waiting for me and I want to see her.
Yeah.
Or like today, like I've, you know, I mean, I know both my kids are in daycare, or the two younger ones, but like I was like, oh, cool. Like I can make it to the noon class today. And I was able to get that workout in, you know? And so it's like, because I know I want to see you guys.
Yeah.
And so it's like finding those things. And I know it's not the most like actionable thing, but I think again, it's the mindset, and it's buying in. It's understanding that you have to believe in it in order to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because anyone can tell anyone to do anything, right? That's why a lot of times like those 12-week challenges like that are so regimented don't work for a lot of people, because it's so like on one end of the spectrum that they can't sustain it, because now what happens after you take all that away?
The accountability is gone.
The accountability is gone.
Yeah.
They don't know how to temper it when life gets hard. They don't know how to temper it when your kids get sick, when you're busy at work. You know what I mean? And so, and then what do? They beat themselves up.
Yeah.
And then they just quit because they're like, oh, well, it was too hard. And so it's like that, again, it's like that all or nothing. So it's like finding out how to make it work for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, I love how you said, you know, you compared it to like those 12-week or 6-week challenges that are so popular, because I think people do get in that environment, and it does help. That's why they do see results in the short term, because the environment has changed and the stakes are higher and the accountability is there. So how can we make that more sustainable over a longer period of time? And I like what you said about, you know, finding people in classes, finding community, because when you can change your environment, you can change your behavior for the long term. So I love that. That's a great tip. All right, moving into our final question before we wrap things up. So balancing family, fitness, and personal time can be challenging. Can you give people some tips on how you prioritize and manage these aspects of your life?
I think the biggest thing, actually, I wrote it down. Hang on, I'm going to pull it up. The biggest thing, and this is something that's more new to me, like in the last year, is that knowing when to ask for help, knowing when to say no, and being okay with not being able to do it all. And I think a lot of times, again, social media, it's a whole new thing now, right? Like, especially for like moms. And I almost feel bad, because like sometimes people be like, whether when I was pregnant or like after I had, you know, my kids, and people was like, oh, well, so like they, you know, you do this, like, so other people shouldn't have an excuse. And I almost feel, I'm like, well, don't like, it shouldn't be about what I do compared to someone else. It should be more about, okay, like, how do we get people there? How do we get people to know that it's not about not having excuses? It's just simply about making it part of their life, right? Like that's something that we've, you know, we talked about, is about the longevity, like not about what I can do now, like as whether it's competitive or not, but can I still do CrossFit in 10 years, right? Like, how do I make sure that I can still keep this part of my life no matter what happens? And so that balance is relative. I think balance is relative, because it's not always, balance doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Your balance is based off of, okay, what season of life are you in? Or even what type of day are you having? Okay, well, this is my balance right now is like, I got a call, like my kid's sick again. I was like, oh crap, gotta go get him, right? But luckily I got my workout in already, right? If this was the other day where like my balance was, my balance isn't based around like, what's my priority for that day or for that week or for that month or whatever season of life that I'm in, like that's where my balance is. And I think when we accept that, when you understand that, and like you can like, you're okay with it, right? But again, like I went back again, like also knowing like, yes, have those moments, but also know when do you need to, for lack of a better phrase, am I allowed to curse on this?
Yes.
For lack of a better phrase, pull your head out of your ass and be like, hey.
I thought you were going to say something better.
Well, pull your head out of your ass and be like, okay, now is the time to like to step it up, because I also have goals. So where's it going to give? Where's it going to take? So mine was like, again, like last night, I was like, well, I want to do something. I'm going to sit on this bike for an hour because I haven't done shit all day, or like not really all week. So it was like, that was my give, right? Like you have to, I think people think like balance is like having a little bit of everything, but balance also means sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of, and I see it a lot like with like the younger, like 20-ish year olds, like they want the rewards without putting in the work and the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times now, like with social media, like with people like even like our age, like in our, you know, mid-20s, mid-30s, like we want that instant gratification. We want to have it all, but at the same time, like you can't.
Yeah.
You're not going to.
Yeah.
So knowing how to balance based off of where you're at, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, what's your negotiables, what's your non-negotiables. And I think that's the biggest part of figuring out that balance for you.
No, that's awesome. That's a great way to put it. And it's funny, I've had people in the past tell me before too, like, Matt, you need to be more balanced. I'm like, define balanced. Like, define it. Like, is it your definition of balance? Because judging by your definition of balance, I'm going to be fat. I'm going to be lazy and work a 9 to 5 and be miserable. So if that's balance, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'd rather be imbalanced and go after the things I want and be healthy, fit, have a business, have a great family, and be willing to put up with some hard, just some quote unquote hard stuff in order to have that. And if that's what is required of me, then I will do that.
Yeah. I think that you bring up a good point. Like, so for some days, like, yeah, it means resting. And then other days it means getting off your butt and doing something. Like I was working at a work at cheer competition. I judged for 15 hours and like, I got in late, but I woke up early and I was like, I did like, it was a 15-20 minute workout. That's all I did. But everyone's like, why don't you just sleep? I was like, because I'm going to be sitting for 15 hours and I know I'm going to be cranky as shit. Like, I want to move and do something.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so it's like for some people, but then guess what I did when I came home? I came home and I didn't do anything. Like, that was balance for me. Is that the same for someone else? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I think that's why, again, it's relative. And I think a lot of like the fitness space people are trying to be like, well, this person said this and this person said this. It's like, why don't you figure out what you need first?
Yeah.
And then that's where that's where you can like, hey, that's where the coaching comes in. Like, what's the best way to approach this for me?
Yeah. No, 100%. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on. It was great catching up with you and getting all your thoughts down. This was awesome. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is fun.
Thank you so much for listening. If this was helpful, please leave us a 5-star review so we know to make more content just like this. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Red Wolf CrossFit and go and DM your questions or content suggestions there. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, good luck. Have fun. Nailed it. Can you say it? Say it, Vanessa.
Nailed it.